And we begin this hour of KXEL Live and Local on a Wednesday by welcoming a return guest to the program. He is joining us via Zoom from his home base in the Des Moines metro area. He is Michael Swanger, the owner, publisher, editor. I think he takes out the trash as well. Whatever needs to be done with regard to Iowa History Journal, the excellent magazine that comes out 6 times a year, he does it. Mr. Swanger, good morning, and thank you for the time, sir.
Good morning, Jeff. Always a pleasure to speak with you. A great way to start our day.
And again, there is nothing that you don't do, in all seriousness, with the magazine. I believe your wife, Rebecca, takes care of some of the accounting and financials, but you're editing stories, you're assigning stories, you're writing stories, you're finding the artwork, you're figuring out the composition and mix. That alone is not, I would suggest, as easy as some people may think, because you are very purposeful about what you put into each issue of the magazine. I mean, these 30 pages don't just happen by chance.
No, they don't, Jeff. And it's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. And it's one of those things that when I was a young person, growing up dreaming someday of owning my own publication, of course, little do you know when you're young how much work is involved to running your own small business. So careful what you wish for, I guess. There are some days I might think that, but no, actually, it's I love wearing the multiple hats that I do to run IHJ. And you're right, a lot of planning goes into this. It has to, because for us to publish 6 issues a year, especially such a small family operation, we have to be planned in advance so that we can take on the massive amount of work that occurs every year. Plus, we want to give our writers, like yourself, plenty of time to do the deep digging, the diving that they need to do to research the stories that they're going to write for us.
It also allows you to create a blend so that it is not heavy on politics one issue, sports another issue. I mean, this truly is the buffet of Iowa history every month.
It is. Thanks for pointing that out, Jeff, because we think that every story that we publish should touch on something that an Iowan would be interested in, whether it's politics or entertainment or sports or a town or an event that happened. I recently got a comment from someone at the Iowa Excellence in History Awards ceremony, and someone came up to me and said, the mix that you are providing is just incredible, because so many people, when they think of history, they get so singularly focused on one topic or one idea, and or at least for whatever it is they might be reading or studying at the moment. And I actually got a comment about that from a professor, and I was really glad to hear that, because it kind of reinforced what our mission has been all along in terms of touching on something that we feel that every Iowan would have an interest in.
Speak, if you will, about the awards. I believe I saw a picture of you on the social media platforms with our friend Valerie Van Coten. Tell us about those awards this year. It's getting to be a regular thing.
Well, I feel very fortunate to have such a talented stable of writers to contribute to IHJ. And yes, they recently held the ceremony. The State Historical Society of Iowa's Board of Trustees. And once again, a couple of IHJ writers were fortunate to be bestowed the George Mills Louise Noun Award, which is an award that they give out every year for a story published in a popular periodical. And Don Doxey, who wrote our series about our POW camps last year that you and I spoke about, won the award, and I was very happy for him. That's his 2nd year in a row. And then we had Timothy Walsh, who is another well-known author and historian who wrote a great series about Grenville Dodge, and he received an honorable mention in that category. So I'm very tickled for those 2 gentlemen, but more importantly, I'm very tickled for our readers, because to me, that just reinforces the quality of the content that we're producing. And I'm happy when the writers are recognized, because they're the ones doing the work. And I know that that's going to just go straight to our readers. And I know that they appreciate the time and effort that are put into our stories.
And I know from my time on the board of that organization long ago, 15 years ago, it's a pretty competitive category for those popular history articles. There are so many that are written and so many that are done well. And to walk away with anything with IHJ's name attached, much less 2 awards in this calendar year alone. That is tremendous. Well, if you find the new issue, July-August of Iowa History Journal, whether you see it on the website at iowahistoryjournal.com or you find it at any number of dozens and dozens of stores that we'll talk about in a moment, you see a vibrant young woman on the cover. Tell us about this.
Well, this, I think, is one of the most poignant cover stories we've ever published, Jeff. The photo that you're referring to is a photo of Selena Karp Beniez. And Selena is a Holocaust survivor who, after the war, moved to Des Moines, of all places, with her parents. And after almost 50 years of silence regarding her incredible story that author Bill Friedrichs outlined for us for our cover story, he wrote a book about her that was published last year called Saved by Schindler. He has written a beautiful piece about Selena's life, what she experienced during the Holocaust, her time in Iowa, and her life beyond Iowa. But the photo specifically that you're referring to that graces our cover is of great interest to those who have read the story, because it's a picture of Selena holding her mother's Schindler's cup. And Selena and her parents were workers in Oskar Schindler's factory in World War II. And those who saw the 1993 movie by Steven Spielberg, Schindler's List, will just begin to get a glimpse into her life and her story that we present in our current issue.
I recall, thanks to the good folks at Ice Cube Press, we spoke with Mr. Fredericks, Bill Fredericks, the author of Saved by Schindler, when the book came out, a story I had no knowledge of whatsoever, and the fact that Selena herself is 93 years of age and hale and hearty. And it is just a striking reminder of the fact that for many of us, the Holocaust is a series of black and white newsreels. But it not only impacted real human beings, but real human beings who still tell their stories today.
That's a great point, Jeff. We're talking about a living example of someone who went through this. And obviously, we're losing survivors of the Holocaust at a rapid rate. There aren't very many left. And the fact that we have one who lived so long in Iowa is just an incredible story for us to share. Selena is now lives on the West Coast, but her time in Iowa, especially in the last few years when she's come back to visit, where she has donated items to the Iowa Jewish Historical Society in Des Moines, and the time that she spent speaking with Bill for him to write the book that he did, which was funded and presented, the idea from the Historical Society, is just compelling. I never thought that in all the years of publishing IHJ that we would ever run across a story that had an Iowa connection to the Holocaust.
You know, we have had Michael Bornstein on the program. He was a 4-year-old, I think, who was in the camps, came to school at the University of Iowa. His daughter wound up working in television news in Iowa, and he's made the trip back a few times with her as he, at a certain point in life, very similar to what you're talking about here with Selena, they get to a certain point in life and they say, I now want to tell the story, painful though it may be. What was the genesis for her opening up to Bill for the book? And again, having him write this wonderful article in this month's or this time's issue, comes out 6 times a year, of Iowa History Journal.
The genesis really was Spielberg's movie, Schindler's List, in '93, because for decades, like so many survivors of the Holocaust, they just felt uncomfortable talking about it because it seemed so surreal to those who were listening that they didn't believe it. They couldn't believe that something like that could happen. Well, it did. And the movie is what really brought her story to life in her mind, in terms of she needed to share this. At the end of our story, there's a great quote that Bill got from her, in which she says that Oskar Schindler saved my life, 50 years later, Steven Spielberg gave me back my voice. And I think that says it all. And she is still very active in working in terms of speaking. She spoke a few times here, going back to about 5 years ago, where she spoke at Valley High School here in West Des Moines and some other places. And she's still active in terms of telling her story. So she went from decades of not talking about it to being a very vocal person about her experience, because she wants others to know what she and others went through. It goes back to the old saying about history that, if we fail to learn from it, we're doomed to repeat it. I think especially in this time, in this day and age, in the world that we live in now, it's especially poignant. But it was that movie that sparked her willingness to come out and talk. And as a matter of fact, just this past March, she was one of the featured speakers at the USC Shoah Foundation's 30th anniversary celebration. And Spielberg himself actually introduced Selena to the crowd, who was welcomed by a standing ovation. The Shoah Foundation, real quick, is amassing an incredible archive. It has more than 56,000 testimonies from Holocaust survivors, Selena among them.
Grinnell College alum. Again, it was a matter that after the Holocaust, she located in Iowa. Iowa was her home until she pursued postgraduate education. And it is interesting, as the article notes, she did not talk about it after the first few months in Des Moines, because that sort of was an establishment of place. Who are you? Why are you here? Etc.
Sure.
But didn't talk about it for decades, so as not, to many people's eyes, be tagged as a quote-unquote Holocaust survivor and treated differently. And so in an effort to have as normal a life one can have after such a painful experience, to have your life bookended in essence by it, and to get to the point where you say, I don't care anymore because I've lived a good life. It's now time to tell the story so others can understand. I mean, that's just fascinating to me, that you're able to sort of put it in a box. And so many of them did, from what little I know, until the time was right, either when they were ready to talk or people were ready to listen.
Many of the survivors, just like many of the World War II veterans, lived a very compartmentalized life. And they were able to put that away and open it up at some point later on down the road. And what you speak to about her not talking about when she reached Des Moines, and just to give your listeners a quick backstory on this, after she and her parents were freed from the last labor camp that they were in that was owned by Oskar Schindler, they arrived in Des Moines in 1947. Her father had a relative here in Iowa and agreed to go pick them up in New York, brought them back to Des Moines. And Selena was just a teenager. So she was like any person of that age. She was just looking for some semblance of normalcy. She wanted to fit in. She wanted to be among her peers. Remember, she wasn't in school all these years. That she was in Auschwitz and all these other camps. And so she caught up with her education. She enrolled at Des Moines North High School, where she graduated from, and then she got a scholarship to go to Grinnell College, where she majored in philosophy, got her degree because she wanted to have a better understanding of the world. That put her through the proverbial ringer and then some. But she, that's all she wanted, was just a semblance of normalcy. So I think that when she discovered right away, the Des Moines Register published a story about her as soon as she moved to Des Moines, and she found that people just didn't want to talk about it. It was just the sense of, I just want to fit in. I want to get on with my life. And she had an incredible life. She led just the perfect revenge, as you might say, to those who persecuted her and her people, is to live a great life. And that's indeed what she did. And she experienced that because of the normalcy she had and the stability in Des Moines and at North High School and at Grinnell College.
Selena Karp Biniez, graduate of North High School in Des Moines, roughly 3 years after the end of World War II. Grinnell College graduate, age 93, the subject of the cover story in the current issue of Iowa History Journal. Again, the book about her, Saved by Schindler, available from our friends at Ice Cube Press and also the Iowa Jewish Historical Society. Michael Swanger is the publisher and owner of Iowa History Journal, and he's talking with us about this July-August issue. Before we take a break and then talk about the other items in this issue, you knew a bit about the story, obviously the Holocaust, but her story in particular you knew a bit about. But in reading this article and putting it together, what surprised you the most?
Well, I think first and foremost, her ability to forgive those who did such incredible harm to her and her family and all the other Jewish people. Remember, she was born in Krakow, so this was her home. She was a native of Poland, and to obviously go through everything she went through, going from, if you know the history of World War II, starting in September 1939, taking their rights away. She was rounded up, put in the ghetto. She was miraculously, she and her parents, because they worked as accountants, were able to work in these slave labor camps. And their ability to not only forgive their captors and everything that they went through, but also just their wits while they went through it. And of course, admittedly, Selena talks about you had to have a bit of a stroke of luck there too. And there's one especially compelling part of the story, as you know, Jeff, and the story leads with this. Bill does a great job of pulling the reader in, is her encounter with the notorious German SS officer, Joseph Mengele. The firsthand description of her and what she went through during the selection process is just chilling. And if that first part of the story doesn't capture your attention, I don't know what will.
It's the cover story of the July-August issue of Iowa History Journal. You can order a subscription and pick up this past copy as well at iowahistoryjournal.com. It's also available at all manner of stores. There's a list on the website, an exhaustive list, but tell us about some of the areas where we might be able to see it on a newsstand.
Well, we're sold at every Barnes & Noble in Iowa, Jeff, so I know there are plenty in your listener area, including a new store in Dubuque that just opened. And we're sold at most of the Hy-Vee stores in Iowa. And then we have a handful of other independent stores, again, on the website. Visit us there. Or just go online to iowahistoryjournal.com to find a list of stores, or subscribe right there, or even buy just the single issue. If you want to just give it a test run, you can buy us there as well.
We have much more to talk about with regard to the current issue. Michael Swanger is the owner and publisher of Iowa History Journal, and we'll take a bottom of the hour break. We'll ask Mr. Swanger to hang on the Zoom. The Lou Dobbs Business Report, our opening Bloomberg Money Minute, Fox News and Weather. Then we'll pick up where we left off on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk. Welcome back. We're continuing this conversation with Michael Swanger of Iowa History Journal. The July-August issue is out, iowahistoryjournal.com. We've been talking about the cover story, Saved by Schindler's List, the story of 93-year-old Selena Karp-Biniaz. Many other items in the magazine of note as well. And you note not only in your publisher's column, but then there is an article about our great Iowa tourism sites, some of them marking centennials in 2024.
That's right. During our summer vacations and our annual summer rituals, whether it be the 4th of July parade that just passed or places that we go visit from fairgrounds, I'm reminding Iowans to be mindful of history, because it's everywhere that we go, including on our vacations and, like I said, our summer rituals. One of the biggest outlets, of course, is the local county fair. There are more than 100 county fairs across Iowa. Everyone thinks about the big one in Des Moines that gets all the free press, and yeah, it draws more than 1 million people, but about 2 million more people go to fairs across the state. And there is a lot of history to be taken into those places. So I encourage folks to take a look at their surroundings when they go to those things. And then, of course, museums are always a popular summer pastime to take the kids. And I encourage folks to take their children, their grandchildren, get out this summer and enjoy the many museums that our state has to offer. There are several.
And a couple of centennial points in the magazine. One has to do with the great outdoors, and that's Ledges State Park.
That's right. As you mentioned, speaking of the centennial there, the Ledges State Park is the second state park that was established in 1924. And I think to those who have been to Ledges State Park, which is between Boone and Ames, they're aware of how it's one of Iowa's most historic and unique nature destinations, especially for hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. But it has a 4-mile trail system that winds through steep slopes and scenic overviews with sandstone ledges that tower above the Des Moines River. And of course, it has stone bridges like the one at Pease Creek at Ledge State Park, which is famous. Listen, even my wife and my son, it's an annual rite of passage for them every summer. And he's in college now. And he's still willing to hang out with his mom, which I think is pretty cool. They go up there at least once a summer to enjoy it. It's a popular destination, and it's a really neat place to visit. And there are some markers and things along the way that recognize its history. And I did not know about its first caretaker until Carson Odie wrote this story for us. It's very interesting.
And it is in the current issue of Iowa History Journal, iowahistoryjournal.com. And you're talking about county fairs, the Blackhawk County Fair at the National Cattle Congress grounds this coming week. Coming up later in July, it's the Summer Olympic Games, and you're recognizing an Iowa Olympian from 24. In this case, it's 1924.
Exactly. Here we are, Paris Olympics 100 years later. We're talking about cycling legend Victor Hopkins, who was born in Cedar Rapids. And he's an Iowan who competed in the 1924 Olympics in Paris. He won the World Motor Pace Championship. And he's in 2006, he was inducted into the U.S. Bicycling Hall of Fame. I did not know anything about Victor until the author of our story, Don Doxey, the retired sports editor and columnist from the Quad City Times, pitched it to me about a year ago. He had the foresight to say, Michael, did you know that the Olympics are going to be held in Paris next year? No, I did not. I did not realize it. Well, did you know that we had an Iowan competing in it as a cyclist? No, I did not. That's the beauty of this. I learn something new every time we publish a new issue, just like our readers do, I hope. And so Don did a great job of digging into his story and found lots of great old photos, including one of the pictures, well, a couple of photos from the Olympics and the team that he competed with. And as a side note, if you're a fan of the NFL, one of the members on that U.S. team was Rob Gronkowski's grandfather. So if you know that name, Gronk from the NFL, his grandfather was a cyclist alongside an Iowan named Victor Hopkins.
So I guess my lack of athletic prowess, I shouldn't feel bad about, because really I need to blame my ancestors, because apparently all this stuff runs in the family, is what you're saying.
Exactly. You know, there's definitely a genetic connection there. So yeah.
So that is in this issue of Iowa History Journal. Victor Hopkins from the 24 Olympics, 1924. Some months ago, probably not all that long ago, but KXEL's Tim Harwood spoke with Jeff Bremer, an author of a book called A New History of Iowa, and our mutual friend John Busby has given that a review in this issue as well.
It's a terrific read, Jeff, as you know, and I'm glad that we reviewed it. The timing is fortuitous. We had been waiting to have the pages to do it. It's a nice problem to have. We have a lot of books that come through. I can't quite get to all of them, but it seems to me like this was an obvious one that we had to review, and fortuitously it won an award just in the last 2 weeks at the Excellence in Iowa History Awards, and very deservingly so. I encourage folks to pick it up and read it, because it really does kind of put a new context to everything that we've learned about Iowa history over the years.
And Arvid Huseman remembers his grandmother quite fondly in a way that only Arvid can, with his wonderful way with words. And there's even more. We're just starting to talk about the things that are in the 30 pages of Iowa History Journal. You get it at most Hy-Vee stores, all the Barnes & Nobles, so many other stores in your hometown. If you don't see it, ask for it. You can get the full list at iowahistoryjournal.com. Even better, subscribe so you don't miss an issue. You can buy additional copies at the newsstand or online at iowahistoryjournal.com. Michael Swanger, always a privilege. Best of luck with this issue and getting the next one out. We'll talk soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Jeff.
KXEL Live and Local continues with an RFD 1540 conversation before the end of the hour. That's after this short break on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.